In a courtroom drama that has seized national attention, Judge Caldwell's renowned composure reached its breaking point, culminating in the extraordinary removal of a defendant from the proceedings and the immediate revocation of their bail, a sequence of events captured on camera and disseminated across the globe, igniting a fierce debate within the legal community regarding the scope of judicial authority and the permissible limits of courtroom behavior. This incident, far from being a mere procedural hiccup, has become a flashpoint, forcing a reevaluation of the delicate balance between a defendant's rights and the imperative to maintain order and respect within the judicial system. The ramifications of Judge Caldwell's actions are likely to extend far beyond the immediate case, potentially setting a new precedent for how judges manage disruptive defendants and uphold the integrity of the legal process. The contentious scene unfolded during what was initially anticipated to be a standard pretrial hearing, a routine step in the legal process. However, the defendant's conduct quickly deviated from the norm, escalating into a blatant display of disrespect and defiance that permeated the courtroom atmosphere. Eyewitness accounts paint a picture of a defendant exuding contempt, marked by a consistent refusal to acknowledge the judge's presence, audible whispers exchanged with their legal team that disrupted the proceedings, and even instances of audible laughter during the judge's procedural statements, actions that collectively undermine the solemnity and decorum expected within a court of law. This behavior, far from being a momentary lapse in judgment, appeared to be a deliberate strategy aimed at challenging the authority of the court and disrupting the proceedings. The pivotal moment arrived when Judge Caldwell, in an attempt to maintain order, addressed the defendant's adherence to the pretrial conditions set forth by the court. In a brazen act of defiance that reverberated through the courtroom, the defendant interrupted the judge mid-sentence, proclaiming in a clear and unwavering voice, "This court has no authority over me. I do not recognize this proceeding." This declaration, a direct challenge to the legitimacy of the court itself, marked a significant escalation in the defendant's disruptive behavior and signaled a clear intent to obstruct the legal process. The statement, delivered with an air of arrogance and defiance, hung heavy in the air, creating a palpable tension within the courtroom as all eyes turned to Judge Caldwell to observe his response. Judge Caldwell, a figure known throughout the legal community for his calm and measured demeanor, paused momentarily, affording the defendant one final opportunity to retract their statement and rectify their behavior. In a voice that retained its composure, but carried an underlying tone of warning, he stated, "You will conduct yourself with respect for this court, or there will be immediate consequences." This admonishment, delivered with the weight of judicial authority, served as a clear ultimatum, giving the defendant a final chance to comply with the rules of the court and avoid the repercussions of their continued defiance. The judge's words, carefully chosen and deliberately delivered, underscored the importance of maintaining order and respect within the courtroom and the potential consequences of failing to do so. However, the defendant remained unrepentant, seemingly emboldened by their earlier defiance. In a further act of disrespect, the defendant turned towards the gallery, directing a dismissive gesture towards the bench, a gesture that was interpreted by many as a direct insult to Judge Caldwell and the authority of the court. This act of blatant disregard, witnessed by all present in the courtroom, proved to be the final straw for Judge Caldwell, pushing him to take decisive action to restore order and uphold the integrity of the proceedings. The gesture, captured by courtroom cameras, quickly circulated online, further fueling the public debate surrounding the case and the defendant's conduct. In a swift and decisive response, Judge Caldwell's voice, described by witnesses as instantly transforming into a colder, more authoritative tone, commanded, "Marshals, remove this individual from my courtroom immediately. We're done." This order, delivered with unwavering conviction, signaled the end of the judge's patience and the beginning of the defendant's physical removal from the proceedings. The judge's words, spoken with a firmness that brooked no argument, underscored the gravity of the situation and the court's determination to maintain order and decorum. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted dramatically as the tension that had been building throughout the hearing reached its peak. Two U.S. Marshals, strategically positioned near the side entrance of the courtroom, moved without hesitation, swiftly approaching the defendant and escorting them towards the holding area. The defendant, seemingly caught off guard by the suddenness of the action, barely had time to react before being physically removed from the courtroom. The marshals, acting with professionalism and efficiency, executed the judge's order with precision, ensuring the defendant's safe and orderly removal from the proceedings. The scene, captured on video, became a focal point of public discussion, with many debating the appropriateness of the judge's actions and the defendant's conduct. But the dramatic events were far from over. As the marshals moved to carry out the judge's order, Judge Caldwell continued, addressing the court reporter, "Let the record reflect that the defendant has demonstrated willful contempt for this court's authority. Based on this conduct combined with documented violations of pretrial release conditions, the court is revoking bail effective immediately." This announcement, delivered with the same unwavering authority as his previous command, sent shockwaves through the courtroom and the broader legal community. The revocation of bail, a significant consequence, underscored the severity of the defendant's actions and the court's determination to ensure the integrity of the legal process. The immediate revocation of bail, coupled with the physical removal of the defendant from the courtroom, sent shockwaves through the legal community and ignited a flurry of commentary from legal analysts and experts. Those who reviewed the official court transcript emphasized that Judge Caldwell's decision was not an impulsive reaction, but rather a carefully considered response based on weeks of accumulated violations and a pattern of disrespectful behavior. The judge's actions, they argued, were a necessary step to maintain order in the courtroom and uphold the integrity of the judicial process. The incident sparked a debate about the balance between a defendant's rights and the court's authority to maintain order and decorum. Judge Caldwell's bail revocation order meticulously cited specific instances of the defendant's noncompliance with the pretrial conditions, including missed check-ins with pretrial services, alleged unauthorized contact with witnesses despite a court-issued no-contact order, and the posting of inflammatory content on social media platforms that appeared to threaten court officers and other individuals involved in the case. These documented violations, presented as evidence of the defendant's disregard for the court's authority, formed the basis for Judge Caldwell's decision to revoke bail and detain the defendant pending trial. The detailed nature of the order underscored the judge's careful consideration of the matter and his commitment to providing a clear and justifiable rationale for his actions. Court documents revealed that pretrial services had filed 2 formal notices of noncompliance regarding the defendant's behavior, both of which had been addressed in earlier hearings with explicit warnings from Judge Caldwell. These warnings, however, were repeatedly disregarded by the defendant, leading to the dramatic sequence of events that ultimately unfolded in the courtroom. The fact that the defendant had been previously warned about their behavior and the potential consequences of their actions further supported Judge Caldwell's decision to revoke bail and detain the defendant. The court records painted a picture of a defendant who was consistently defiant and unwilling to comply with the rules and regulations of the court. The bail revocation order contained unusually strong language, with Judge Caldwell writing, "The defendant has demonstrated a fundamental unwillingness to comply with the conditions of release and has shown contempt for the judicial process itself. Continued liberty poses an unacceptable risk to the integrity of these proceedings." This statement, reflecting the judge's deep concern about the defendant's behavior, underscored the seriousness of the situation and the potential consequences of allowing the defendant to remain free pending trial. The judge's words conveyed a sense of urgency and a determination to protect the integrity of the legal process from further disruption. Further investigation into the matter revealed that investigators had been meticulously building a case for bail revocation for several weeks, focusing primarily on the defendant's social media activity, which prosecutors argued constituted a form of witness intimidation and obstruction of justice. The investigators had been carefully monitoring the defendant's online posts, documenting instances where the defendant appeared to be targeting individuals involved in the case and attempting to influence their testimony. The evidence gathered by the investigators played a crucial role in Judge Caldwell's decision to revoke bail and detain the defendant. One particular social media post, according to court filings, referenced individuals believed to be cooperating witnesses by their initials, employing language that the government characterized as thinly veiled threats designed to intimidate and silence potential witnesses. This post, along with other similar communications, provided compelling evidence of the defendant's intent to obstruct the legal process and undermine the administration of justice. The government argued that the defendant's social media activity posed a significant threat to the integrity of the trial and the safety of potential witnesses. Judge Caldwell directly addressed the issue of the defendant's social media activity in his written order, stating, "The defendant's public communications demonstrate not merely poor judgment, but a calculated effort to undermine the administration of justice." This statement, reflecting the judge's assessment of the evidence, underscored the seriousness of the defendant's actions and the potential harm they could inflict on the legal process. The judge's words conveyed a sense of outrage and a determination to hold the defendant accountable for their attempts to obstruct justice. The defendant is currently being held without bail pending trial, a status that is notoriously difficult to reverse in federal court. Their legal team has been granted a limited window of 24 hours to file an emergency appeal challenging Judge Caldwell's decision, but legal experts remain skeptical of their chances of success, given the overwhelming evidence of the defendant's repeated violations and disrespectful conduct. The defendant's current detention underscores the seriousness of their actions and the potential consequences of defying the authority of the court. The legal community is closely watching the appeal process, recognizing that it could have significant implications for the future of judicial authority and courtroom conduct. The implications of this case extend far beyond the confines of the courtroom, potentially reshaping the landscape of judicial authority in federal proceedings nationwide. Legal experts are calling it a watershed moment, suggesting that it could serve as a new benchmark for how judges handle defiant defendants and maintain order within their courtrooms. The case has sparked a national conversation about the balance between a defendant's rights and the court's responsibility to ensure a fair and impartial trial. The outcome of the case is likely to have a lasting impact on the way judges manage disruptive defendants and uphold the integrity of the legal process. Former federal prosecutor Marcus Webb described Judge Caldwell's actions as textbook but elevated, emphasizing the importance of meticulously building a record of violations and warnings before taking such a decisive step. Webb argued that Judge Caldwell's careful approach ensured that his decision would withstand legal scrutiny and serve as a clear message to other defendants about the consequences of disrespecting the court. Webb's analysis highlighted the strategic nature of Judge Caldwell's actions and the importance of following established legal procedures when dealing with disruptive defendants. Constitutional law professor David Armitage from Harvard Law School stated that this case sends a clear message that federal courts are not platforms for political theater or personal expression, but rather solemn institutions where the rule of law must be respected. Armitage argued that Judge Caldwell's actions were necessary to protect the integrity of the judicial process and prevent the courtroom from being used as a stage for disruptive behavior. Armitage's comments underscored the importance of maintaining order and decorum in the courtroom and the potential consequences of allowing defendants to undermine the authority of the court. However, some defense attorneys have expressed concerns that Judge Caldwell's actions might embolden other judges to act more aggressively on what they perceive to be thinner evidence of disrespect or noncompliance. These attorneys worry that the case could set a precedent for judges to overreact to minor infractions and potentially infringe on a defendant's right to a fair trial. They argue that it is crucial to maintain a balance between the court's authority and the defendant's rights, and to ensure that judges do not abuse their power in the name of maintaining order. Despite these concerns, Even defense-oriented analysts acknowledge that the defendant's conduct in this case was particularly egregious and that Judge Caldwell had a strong record of repeated warnings and documented violations to support his decision. These analysts concede that the defendant's behavior crossed the line of acceptable courtroom conduct and that Judge Caldwell was justified in taking action to restore order and uphold the integrity of the proceedings. They acknowledge that the defendant's actions were not simply a matter of expressing disagreement with the court, but rather a deliberate attempt to disrupt the legal process and undermine the authority of the judge. The defendant's legal team now faces an almost insurmountable appellate challenge, as they must argue that Judge Caldwell acted without sufficient cause, despite the overwhelming evidence of repeated warnings, documented violations of pretrial conditions, and intolerable conduct within the courtroom. The legal team's task is made even more difficult by the fact that the defendant's actions were captured on video and widely disseminated, making it difficult to argue that the judge's decision was based on anything other than the defendant's own behavior. The appellate court is likely to give significant deference to Judge Caldwell's decision, making it unlikely that the defendant's bail will be reinstated. The legal world is watching closely as this case unfolds, recognizing that it has the potential to redefine the boundaries of acceptable courtroom conduct and the limits of judicial authority in the face of increasingly defiant defendants. The case serves as a reminder of the importance of maintaining order and decorum in the courtroom and the potential consequences of disrespecting the authority of the court. The outcome of the case is likely to have a lasting impact on the way judges manage disruptive defendants and uphold the integrity of the legal process.